So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Hope you are all well. Firstly, just starting off with some quick introductions. So my name is Charlie Hill. I'm Head of Sales here at QDC. Main responsibility is all around the commercial side of things, but more importantly, engaging with organisations to understand any pain points and challenges they may be facing regarding their project management tooling setup, and hopefully looking to resolve that utilising the Microsoft 365 technologies. Ollie?
Thank you, Charlie. Afternoon, everyone. So my name is Ollie Armstrong, and I work within the delivery side of things here at QDC. Also head up our PMO team internally as well. So kind of day-to-day role includes kind of obviously looking after all of our ongoing projects, but also running kind of workshops and doing deployments of systems similar to the one that we'll be going through today.
Excellent. Thank you, Ollie. So just to provide a little bit of context around the webinar before we go through the next couple of slides. As you would have all seen from the title, Achieving Financial Control with Microsoft PPM. So what we'll be looking to do today is take you through predominantly a bit of a demo of some of the latest Microsoft technologies that we support with. One being the Microsoft Power Platform, the other being Microsoft Projects, as well as perhaps touching on a little bit around Planner. But the whole purpose of this is a focus session on the financial management that we can achieve with those technologies. So exploring things such as how do we manage rate cards, purchase orders, deliverables, but also looking at things such as tracking budget, forecasts, actuals, and how do we take all of that information and roll that up into reports that are visible and live for stakeholders and executives. If you do have any questions throughout the session, feel free to pop them into the chat. Like I say, it's only a short session, so yeah, we should have a little bit of time towards the end. And also the Q&A functionality is enabled if you did want to put messages through there as well. Wonderful. So before we do dive into the demo, I just want to give a quick overview of who we are and what we do here at QDC. So firstly, we are proud to be one of the UK's leading Microsoft partners specialising exclusively in the project and portfolio management space. We are very fortunate with the amazing team that we have here at QDC, who have all pretty much spent their entire careers specifically working with Microsoft PPM tools and technologies. So rest assured, there is little we haven't seen. We do also hold strong relationships with Microsoft's internal teams, so we can keep you, the customer, up to date on all of the new and exciting features coming out from them. Now, where QDC comes in as that strategic Microsoft PPM partner is primarily through the implementation of our flagship offering known as QPPM, which is a Power Platform-based solution and will be what we are taking you through today. To give you a bit of insight around what the new world of Microsoft project management looks like, Microsoft essentially is focusing on providing the core scheduling engines. So Microsoft Planner being kind of the latest iteration from them, but also still supporting elements such as Microsoft Project Desktop, which some of you may be using or have used in the past before. However, for many organisations, scheduling alone just isn't enough to manage projects effectively. So that's where we, QDC, step in working with you as the business to extend either Planner and Microsoft Projects functionality into an end-to-end project management tool. Now, a couple bits that makes our approach in QPPM, so our Power Platform solution, especially unique is firstly, it's built entirely on the Microsoft Power Platform, so leveraging Power Apps, Power Automate and Power BI, which are all known as low-code, no-code technologies. What that actually means for you, the customer, is that we have a huge amount of flexibility to customize and configure the solution to meet your specific ways of working. But also, we can actually train you on how to configure the tool as well. Additionally, QPPM, so everything that we will take you through today, utilises strictly Microsoft licensing, keeping the overall cost of ownership very low, and it is just sold as a one-off cost from QDC. deployed and hosted entirely within your Microsoft 365 tenant, so keeping IT teams happy. And I suppose my final note on this slide is if you are already invested in Microsoft 365 as a business, then why not explore what some of these cutting edge Microsoft technologies could offer you and your teams regarding project management and tracking your financials for those projects. Wonderful. So that's just a little bit around who we are and what we do. We'll swiftly move into the demonstration and I'll pass over to Ollie.
Thank you, Charlie. Cool. So I'll just start sharing my screen and give that a second to come through. So yeah, as Charlie mentioned, what we'll kind of be going through is just focusing on kind of the financial elements and different ways that we can track financials and costs within kind of our QPPM system. It's not to say that it cannot be configured to work in different ways. What we kind of include is there as a base. Sometimes organizations will choose to kind of configure it in certain ways, and that absolutely is an option. But yeah, we'll go through what we've got by default during this session. Cool. So first things first, hopefully that's now coming through my screen share. So yeah, coming into the system, I'm started on the landing page, the home page. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to drill down into my list of projects. You can see here one line per project. I'm not going to bother going into too much detail around all of this because we want to focus on the financials. Key things here is obviously that we can obviously include any columns that we need to see, budget, forecast, actuals, if there are any, along with various different other bits of information, which we'll come on to shortly. But yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill down into one of my specific projects here. I'm going to use this cloud AI deployment project as an example. So from a financial management and cost management perspective, it's kind of two key ways that we kind of have out of the box for managing all of this. Now, more often than not, organizations will choose one over the other. There can be occasions where they'll use both together, but as we go through them, you'll probably see why that is the case. So the first one, which is just on this financials tab. So this is all around capturing purchase orders, rate cards, and deliverables, okay, for your project. Now, with this very much suits, for example, professional services organizations or organizations that deploy technology, software, whatever it might be, whereby you're actually selling people's time or you're selling, for example, products. Okay, so in this case here, what we can see is for my project, I have 3 different purchase orders. Very high level, okay, number of days purchased, additional comments. We can integrate with finance systems and things like that, but out of the box, obviously, there's none of that in here, just to keep it simple. So yeah, I've got 3 purchase orders. In the next section down, we've got actually the rate card. So for each purchase order, for example, 4775, I have 2 lines here. One of them is one line, 6 days for a developer, and the other line is 2 days for a project manager. Those 2 lines can have different rates, and that will then obviously equate into work. Once the developer submits, for example, his timesheets and those 6 days are spent, that totals £3,000. For the PM, 2 days, 1,300. Okay, so we can build up this table of rate cards specific to the project, and we'll talk about resource rates separately in a little while, but yeah, for rate cards, they can be stored in here. And then additionally, like I said, below that, deliverables as well. So this is, for example, products. Okay, it may be that there's a fixed price element to something you're delivering, where if it's a physical item or just maybe a documentation or document of some sort, that can come in here, and we can add in a new deliverable. Okay, so for example, again, quantity purchased, quantity rate, so 2 at £11,000 is £22,000. Okay, things like currency and everything like that, we can do multi-currency. So if you wanted to, for example, have euros, pounds, USD, we can kind of have all of that in here as well. But yeah, once you've set these financials up, obviously then we need something to relate it to, and that's where then kind of we walk into the next step of all of this, which is I've created my project, I have my project here, I've got 3 purchase orders linked to it, different rate cards linked to different purchase orders, and also some deliverables as well. Now, what you may notice along the top, there is a button that says Open in Project. Okay, so obviously all of this is trying to link into Microsoft Project and other schedules that we have. We do have the capability to utilize either Planner for any of this or Microsoft Project. I'm going to show Microsoft Project just as an example for today's session, but obviously, yeah, we can link that to Planner as well. So if I just open up Microsoft Project, what we can see here is as part of kind of what we've developed here at QDC, some of you may have heard of kind of one of Microsoft's more legacy systems called Project Online. That's going into retirement later this year. So from the 30th of September, I think it is, that's no longer going to be accessible. And as a result, obviously, there's a lot of organizations that were stuck using Microsoft Project that potentially wouldn't have anywhere to go. So what we've done is we've kind of built this integration whereby we can integrate it directly with the system that we're going through today. Okay, and one of those points of integration is around pulling in these rate cards and the deliverables. Okay, so for example, I can select this drop down here and I can say, okay, Charlie Hill for that task is linked to that purchase order and that rate card. That will, off the back of that, then in turn give me a cost for that task for 1 day. Okay, so that's kind of how that come together. I can insert the column and we can look at the cost and everything like that, and we can kind of pull all of that through in here. Additionally, with anything which is kind of a deliverable, I could scroll down here and just insert a new task, which is deployment complete. Let's assume that is a deliverable, or sorry, a milestone, so 0 days. Again, with my rate card, I can come in and select that deployment rate card against that. That task will then, when I look at it in, for example, a billing report, show up as £11,000 for that there. Okay, so that's kind of how the rate cards and deliverables can tie into your schedule. We do also have resource costs, which are just basically your resource rates. We typically just utilize the Microsoft Project resource rates for all of that. So there's a central resource pool, and again, with our integration, that just kind of pulls in when I'm coming in and adding a new resource from my resource pool. That will obviously pull that rate through with them. Okay, typically a blended rate, obviously, so people don't, well, you don't give too much information away to all of your employees, but yes, we can pull that through as well. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea, and we'll look at some of the reporting off the back of this in a moment, but around kind of how those rate cards, POs and deliverables can work. We come into the project or program or portfolio, wherever we want to do this, add a purchase order, assign the rate cards to that purchase order, and then any deliverables as well. Okay, good. So that's the first part. The second part of the financial management is then actually kind of more project costs. What are we spending, and where's that money coming from? So just next to the financials tab, I've got this costs tab. I'm just going to hit this button here to open up costs, and this is essentially where I can start to manage my project costs themselves. Okay, so this is probably more familiar to a lot of you, where we're talking about now at this point budget, forecast, actuals, okay, things like that. So essentially on here, one line per cost item. I can put a title in. We can create kind of categories and subcategories. You can have additional columns in here if you want to, and I'll show you some of the configurations options in a moment. But yeah, essentially this is your grid whereby I can enter my project costs. You'll see that there is some conditional formatting as well, and we'll touch on that shortly too. But for example, here my budget is 7,500. That's red. We'll take a look at why that's red shortly, but yeah, that's the conditional formatting kicking in there. With regards to filters, you can see we can filter at the top just by, as you again would expect, clicking on the drop downs here next to the headers. Otherwise, we do have some row filters as well. You'll notice that we've only got kind of a slight, not too many months here, March to November. Okay, if I wanted to go further out or go before, I can just update this, and that will then go away and show me those additional months. There we go. Now going out to January. Okay, so nice and easy to use. Come in here, just type in whatever numbers you want to into there, and that's set. Add a new line. We'll obviously add a new cost as well, and then you can save it whenever you need to. Okay, so that's the project costs side of things and how we can start to track that. Now, a lot of the time, organizations budget forecast actuals, they're fairly standard, but you may actually have additional ones. For example, you might want a baseline row or target row or something else. Again, on these row filters, you'll notice that I've only got 3 things kind of available here. What we've tried to do with all of this is essentially, as a solution and as a essentially product, we've tried to give you guys as the the customers as much control over all of this without having to come back to us. So yeah, one of those things is actually configuring these rows that we've got. So if I just come to this other tab I've got, this is essentially system settings, and I'm just going to go to the cost configuration. So yeah, there's a couple of options in here. I won't bother going through all of them, but for example, we do have baseline and target. Now, if I enable them and save that, what that will immediately do is if I come back into my project and I refresh this, you can now see that I've got all 5 lines. Okay, again, I can still come in and say, okay, well, I only want to look at the forecast versus actuals at the moment, so I can come in and apply that filter. I'm just looking at forecast and actuals. But yeah, very easy to kind of configure as an administrator, very easy for end users to come in and enter whatever they need to into there. Okay. So just taking another look at some of these other settings that we do actually have. So default view window, that's just kind of how many months prior and in the future we're looking at by default. Similar to the cost row time frame. Row locking, so this is essentially, if we wanted to, for example, lock certain rows from being editable at certain points in time. So you may see here, for example, my forecast is locked for any month prior to this month, okay, and that will automatically just continue rolling over. When we get into June, May will be locked and I won't be able to edit that at all. But yeah, for now I can. And then you'll also notice for the actuals, it's kind of editable from last month, but yeah, we can kind of play around with all of that and kind of lock it and unlock it as we need to, and also within the settings have it automated like this. Categories and subcategories, we can choose to kind of add anything in here that we need to, and then also that I mentioned earlier, the conditional formatting rules. So for example, if the budget is less than or equal to the forecast, show it as green. Okay, you can change the color, we can get a color picker and all of that sort of stuff within here. I can add new conditions, I can delete existing conditions if I need to as well. Okay, so yeah, very easy to kind of configure. Adding a new condition, I can give it a name. I can essentially say, okay, well, if the target is equal to the forecast, then make it light blue. There's a priority order, so if for example there are clashes with any of this, you can kind of prioritize it. So for example, 1 will take precedence over 2, but yeah, that's how that conditional formatting works as well. And again, it's immediate how that comes through. As soon as I, as an administrator, save that within the system, as an end user, I will see that come through as well. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I won't go too much more into all of this. Hopefully it makes sense how you can just come in, add your costs line by line. Adding new line items, again, you can just add those on and that'll appear at the bottom. I can give it a new name, test 2. I can select a specific subcategory. If it's set up to automatically populate the category, we can do that as well. As you can see, that's populated there. You can search up here for example. There we go. So that's picked up that and that there. But yeah. We'll leave that there. Hopefully that kind of all makes sense, and you can see kind of how easy it is to edit all of that. Okay, cool. The only other thing kind of left to cover off is really around reporting. Okay, so essentially any bit of information that we put into the system, whether it be done through this cost section or the financial section, so working with POs, rate cards, deliverables, things like that, it can all be reported on. All of the data is accessible and it essentially sits within what Microsoft refer to as the Dataverse, which is essentially just a database behind the system. Okay, every single bit of the information, like I said, is reportable. Now, I've got a couple of examples of it. Obviously, again, financial reporting is something that a lot of organizations, their requirements differ. Even if there's just a slight tweak in the data, the report could be completely different. So whilst we do have a couple out of the box, I'll just show you 1 or 2 examples now. So all of the reporting is done through Power BI. Okay, so yeah, hopefully most of you are familiar. Power BI, again, sits within that kind of Microsoft 365 and Power Platform element. Okay, but yeah, on the left-hand side, you can see I'm on the Portfolio Financials tab here. So again, Power BI being Power BI, I can, if I wanted to, just click on that section there, and it will filter anything out that I need to or that I want it to. So, if, for example, selecting that, it will update all of the other bits. Just select that one line there. You can see how much of this is now highlighted. But yeah, Power BI allows you to kind of select various different things on here and have kind of an interactive dashboard. So this is just one example where you can have kind of cards on the left hand side. You can have charts and kind of graphs and also tabular data. There's another example here whereby again we can see kind of tiles along the top, charts here, and then the data down the bottom. So this is a multi-currency one where it just converts everything into dollars. But yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's just a couple of examples of those reports and kind of what they look like. Again, the filters, we can can come in and just filter it by whatever program we need to, or specific project or portfolio. But yeah, again, can be completely configured to pull any of the information which we're capturing within the system through to this. And I think that's everything from myself. So Charlie, back to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ollie. I will just bring us back to the slide deck. So yes, hopefully that was useful for everyone to see some of the key technologies there in action and how we can utilize them to help us manage project costs. So things such as purchase orders, rate cards, as well as budget forecasts and actuals, with all that data being rolled up into Power BI reports to give you that nice clean visualization of that data. So just to wrap up, looking at some of the key call to actions. So if anything that you've seen today might be of interest to explore further, we are more than happy to do a much more in-depth demonstration of the technology that we showed today. So our QPPM offering, there is a lot more to it than just the financial side of things, covering project intake, project prioritization, resource management, of course, financial management, as we went through today, timesheets, and it goes on and on. So yeah, more than happy to set up a focus session on that. Likewise, if just a free 30-minute chat with us just to understand where you are in your PPM journey and particularly how you are currently tracking and managing project costs, then we would really welcome those discussions. And hopefully, if anything, we can just give you a little bit of advice around what we see other organisations do as well. Wonderful. So that gives us about 8 minutes left for any questions. If people do have those, feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll stick about. But if not, thank you so much for attending the session today, and we hope to speak with some of you soon. Thank you.